I guess that every town in North America has its little quirks and traditions. Well, Rockford Bluff was no exception, except that ours was more of a life or death challenge. We called it the October game. I stood at the edge of the cornfield, and some of the kids from school and even a few adults had turned up to watch. It wasn't every day that this happened, and folks in Rockford Bluff loved a good show. The sky was moody and I wondered if he was going to show up at all. Billy Morgan was loud, overconfident, and worst of all, he was a bully, but I never had him down as a coward, and with each passing minute that he didn't show, I began to suspect he was just that, nothing but a coward. It would harm his reputation, as I had challenged him to play in front of all his friends so he couldn't say no. Finally, I heard the rumbling engine of his Pontiac Firebird in the distance, and I prepared myself for the barrage of abuse that would no doubt come out of his mouth. He parked a little way away, and I saw that he was actually on his own, which was a surprise, and he even looked a little taken back when he saw the crowd that had gathered, but as soon as he locked eyes with me, that chest puffed up and he said that I didn't stand a chance against him. I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reply, and instead, I asked if he was ready. He looked out towards the cornfield and nodded, then took off his varsity jacket, throwing it to a young boy on a bike, and Billy put on his red sweater. It was part of the rules that you had to wear red to play the game, maybe so she could see you better. With that, Billy and I walked into the corn, and in no time at all, we couldn't see anything but sky, cornstalks, and each other. It was hard to see exactly where we were going, but I just followed the direction of the setting sun. I noticed Billy eyeball me a few times as we got further out into the field. He even asked me if I thought the game would work. I got the impression that he was feeling nervous now that we were in the beginning stages, and he had no audience apart from me. I said that it would work, and I noted the look of worry on his face. I was nervous too, but of course I didn't want to show that, so I just kept going. My dad's friend had played the October game when he was around my age. I asked him about it once at a party, and he looked at me funny, then said that I shouldn't try it. There was a crumbling wall up ahead and what looked like the remains of a building. Billy asked if that was where we needed to go, but I told him no, it was just the remains of an old church, and apparently safe and neutral ground while playing the game, but I didn't tell him that. Our destination was just beyond a thicket of trees that I could see in the distance. I told Billy that we were nearly there, and he said that he just wanted to get this stupid thing over with. It was becoming more and more apparent that he was completely unprepared for this, and had no idea what he was letting himself in for. The corn grew sparser as we got to the thicket, and I told him to be quiet as we walked around to the dark wooded cottage behind it. My heart was really pounding as we got closer. There was a window facing us, and above it, somebody had painted the words, "Look here." It was about to begin. We both looked through the window and shouted the name Gretchen Black, then we waited for her to appear. I thought about all the times Billy had shoulder barged me in the school corridors, and every time he had called me names in front of his friends. There was no movement inside of the cottage, and Billy said we should go, but then we heard something that sounded like smashed crockery, and I whispered that she was coming. Billy was hyperventilating, and I told him that we had to go through with it. We saw movement from inside, and a brief view of somebody crawling on the floor. We waited. Gretchen jumped up at us, and we fell backwards. The words fell out of my head, and I couldn't think of anything but how hideous she was. She screamed and asked who we were, in a bellowing voice. I took a deep breath and told her our names, then I remembered what to say, even though my voice was shaking. By blood, by fear, by shadows pact, hunt us down, O Gretchen Black. With that, she roared like a wild animal and broke through the window. I shouted at Billy that we were on, and the first one to make it back to the road without being caught would win the challenge. I ran straight through the trees as I heard a crash and scream from behind me. I didn't know what Billy was doing, I just wanted to get back to safety as fast as possible. My heart was pumping, and as I dared a quick look behind me, I saw Gretchen jump into the air, and I mean she jumped really high, like 20 or 30 feet. She landed near Billy, who was trailing behind me, looking terrified and completely out of his depth. He shouted out my name, but I just kept running and hoping that I was going the right way. I heard her leap up again. It was an unmistakable sound, and I dared to look around as she landed, even closer to Billy. A third time, she would get him. His face looked so scared, and for the first time in my life, I felt pity for Billy Morgan. I pointed to my right-hand side and shouted to go to the church. We both ran a right angle as Gretchen made another of her incredible but mistimed jumps. I grabbed Billy's arm as we pelted towards the ruins, and just in time. We jumped over the crumbling outer wall and fell onto the ground. Billy asked if we were safe, and I told him that we were out of danger for the time being. We didn't see Gretchen for a while, but we could hear her pacing around in the corn. Billy unexpectedly put his hand on my shoulder and said thanks, and I saw the tears in his eyes. I challenged Billy to play the October game because I was sick of the way he treated me in school, but right now I couldn't think about that, and I just wanted us to get back to the road safely. To do that, we'd have to work together. I told Billy that running straight wouldn't work. Gretchen would zero in on us. We'd have to run in zigzag patterns to throw her off, and we had about half a mile to go. Billy said he was ready, and that he just wanted to go home. I was in agreement. We stood up, and the movement in the corn stopped. Gretchen knew we were about to go, and we pelted into the cornfield, out of the safe zone. Gretchen roared and jumped up, trying to locate us. By the time she landed, we were far from her. We stuck to the plan, and it worked. Before long, we were midway between the ruins of the church and the road, where I could just make out people waiting for us. I shouted out to Billy to keep going, and he said sure thing. Meanwhile, Gretchen was way off our path, and we could hear her frustration. We were only about 100 feet from the road, and we went full on, despite my lungs burning. We were so close now, and we could hear the cheering and shouting from the crowd. I didn't care who made it first, I just wanted out of the corn, and so did Billy. He was right behind me as I ran like a maniac and jumped the last 6 feet of the field onto the road. It was then that I heard the snap. Billy screamed, and as the wind parted the corn briefly, I saw that his left leg was caught in a bear trap. I tried to get up, to help him, but the crowd held me back. They said to respect the rules of the game, and that I'd won fair and square. Gretchen parted the corn and stood over Billy, baring her rotten teeth menacingly at him. She briefly looked at the people on the road and hissed, then we heard Billy scream. She had gotten her prize. In the days and weeks that followed, I was hailed as a hero, but I didn't feel like one. Everywhere I went, people at school or even out in the street high-fived me and said that I was brave. The authorities had a strange and dangerous attitude to the whole thing and turned a blind eye to Billy's disappearance. What happens during the October game stays on the field, they said. It was a huge mistake to challenge Billy to play, and it's been on my conscience since that cold day in 1982. I'm in my early 60s now, and today I stepped foot into Rockford Bluff for the first time in decades. The truth is that I don't have much time left. Doctors and specialists have confirmed this for me, and I just know in myself that I'm close to the end. That's okay though. I've lived as full and as good a life as I can, and raised 3 beautiful daughters who are grown up now, and they have children of their own. My daddy used to say that sometimes you've just got to grab the bull by the horns and ride it into the storm, and I guess that's what I'm doing now. Maybe I might even run into my old pal Billy Morgan, who knows? The town looks very different to how I remember, and there's houses where fields used to be, and I forgot to bring a red sweater with me, but picked one up in a local store that wasn't there when I lived here. It's October the 4th, and I'm about ready to walk into the cornfield to summon Gretchen Black. I just about remember the route to her dilapidated house, and I remember the words I have to say, but this time around, I won't need to catch my breath in the old churchyard. For the second time in my life, I prepare to play the October game, except this time I know that I won't make it out alive, and I can imagine that she knows I'm coming.